Alright, welcome back to Game 10 of Lucid's 2022 tournament, where we are playing Phlegra. It is turn 56, and as ever, I don't know, I hate the diplomacy in this game. It's not even a fault of its participants. I don't know, I've found myself in repeated awkward positions somehow. Well, let's take a look at the simple stuff, the turn itself, but long story short, we're probably looking to get out of this war with Atlantis for a number of reasons. Particularly, Utgard has ended their nap with them and is going to be coming in, which in some ways it means like we should keep fighting, but in other ways I think that we will be next on the list, right? We've talked before about Utgard's possible throne victories. So anyway, we finish Alteration 9. That is important. It's going to make Firestorm a bit easier for us to pull off, although at this point I feel like there's probably at least a few other people that are also at Alt 9, making Firestorm perhaps less useful. We have some mine hunts going on. We really do, I think I forged a Shade Mail last turn. We need to cut down on this, because we do have enough Astral to be preventing this. Like, yeah, we lose an Oppressor here, which is a bit sad. And then let's see, an Oppressor General, yeah, also killed. So this was one of our raiding forces. So that's nicely done. By Atlantis, that is. Do a little bit of site searching that doesn't work out. Atlantis proclaims a profit, so not everything's been going well for them. Speaking of things not going well, Gorgeous George has returned to us again. I will endeavor not to lose the Pretender. Do a couple Frozen Heart casts from like a Water 1 mage. So let's see here. I'm not sure where we're getting attacked. Okay, this is where our fellows got mind hunted. So this is definitely going to get wiped out. And it looks like, I was going to say it looks like we got attacked in Raga, since this is showing as Atlantis, but maybe not. I don't actually see a battle there. We did pull off, right? So we didn't really leave anything there. We did have, were we doubling up on raids? No, we were just moving south. This is where our army moved off to. Not really. Okay, we actually do bump into a raiding group here. I don't know if this is enough to trigger gem usage, but it looks, yes, that answers that. So that's kind of sad. We do have gems with this army, so it's not the end of the world. But this is, you know, way more expenditure than we're gonna need. We're probably also not gonna. Oh wait, no, hold on. Yep, we're gonna get the mages. That's good. A little bit of friendly fire, of course. Oh man, we do spend a lot of gems there. So that's pretty unfortunate. Of course, we burn out the communion as well. That's a given. Well, actually, a lot more friendly fire. I'm assuming that's probably friendly fire. Yeah, I don't really see a lot of kills on Atlantis' side. Yeah, and I mean, you know, the burning out the communion, we've talked about that. I think is unfortunately a cost of doing business. We could certainly go the other route and, you know, throw a ton of shackled mages at this army, but you know, in any kind of like moderate sized engagement, this just means we're going to lose a ton of shackled mages. It's kind of unfortunate because I feel like as late age and probably middle age Phlegra as well, their communions, as far as I know, work basically the same way. You can, in addition to being gem baited, you can be like communion slave baited. I guess with any communion nation, that's to an extent possible, but like it's pretty easy with Phlegra. And then, of course, all the friendly fire we're getting, that's just a function of those throne mages. If you have Earth Astral, like, we actually even have some of it scripted, so some of those falling rocks are our fault, but you can't stop the AI from casting that spell. We do at least kill the entire raiding force. Getting rid of these Forgiving Fathers is pretty nice. They're kind of expensive, and they can only be recruited underwater, so it's probably still worth it on the balance, barring all the gem expenditure. We do catch a bunch of battles between Ulm and Atlantis. So yeah, this looks like a medium-sized commitment. Maybe actually, there's more mages in here than I realized. So medium-sized on troops, a little heavy on the mages, and they're up against nothing, so that should work out. Hopefully they don't burn out their communion. No. So nice to see that, you know, it's not always an automatic communion burnout for some other nations. Some wolves, looks like Black Priest with no gems, probably like some body ethereal, I'm thinking. Oh, are those actually his sacreds? And it looks like Atlantis doesn't really have anything in the way of a defense, not even any PD, it seems like. And those were not sacreds from Ulm, so not really sure. They still managed to lose a bunch of wolves. I guess there was a scout there. But still, Ulm does come away with the province, so that is good. You know, fairly efficient raid. And then, yeah, I feel like these vampire lords, or maybe just a regular vampire, or rather a regular vampire lord. Yeah, Ulm does get a couple special ones, but nothing special about this guy. Though it does look like he might potentially get soul slayed. No, these guys cannot join with this Forgiving Father. It looks like he's just here to give some quickness, which, yeah, you know, I don't know. Skelly spam is pretty good, but there's only one spammer here, so I think this might actually work out for Atlantis. Also, these guys have magic weapons, which gets around the invulnerability of the Vampire Lord. Yeah, of course, Vampire Lords are immortal, so he'll be back. It's still 2 for 3 for, you know, Ulm, and they don't really lose anything in the battle that they do lose. So, you know, going decently well for Ulm. I'm not 100% sure we're going to pull out of this war with Atlantis. I do feel a bit bad about abandoning Ulm. On the other hand, you know, we are kind of 2v1ing Atlantis, so even if we drop out, it's, you know, still just a 1v1. We've definitely done, you know, plenty of lifting. We've fought some major battles. You know, it's not like I told them I'd be in forever. And then, yeah, here we're grabbing a throne against just some province defense. And, yeah, this guy who's, I think was the one that killed our pretender, although he's just retreating off now. So, yeah, there's definitely some danger from those crossbows, though. Yeah, Gifts from Heaven, of course. And, like, yeah, we just have our guys set to do some spell casting. Yeah, I think advanced and cast spells. And so there's definitely some danger of getting mind hunted, although I think, yeah, we have some astral guys here, yeah, to help cover this guy. So hopefully no more mind hunting of our tyrants. We do pick up a throne province there, so, you know, that's nice, although we're not really going to be able to hold it with that. But it's maybe a bargaining chip we can use. You know, we're probably not going to get Raga, but we might be able to get that throne province, because I don't think that, you know, Atlantis is necessarily going to have a problem with us holding it. It's just a question of, like, well, you know, how useful, I forget which throne it is offhand. It might be a particularly useful one for Atlantis. And then, yeah, here we have a guy who is hanging out. I don't know. This is one of our, you know, rating groups, counter rating groups that's a bit more on the questionable side. Fortunately, we haven't gotten a ton of the Cyclopses that are like the more useful spellcasters. I mean, these are the split guys. But, you know, the Cyclopses themselves, mage support. Oh, man, I think we're going to lose this. But it almost works out for us. Yeah, that was pretty close. So, you know, not the worst effort. Definitely was budget. And, like, yeah, we do invest a decent amount into the province defense. Which, you know, is somewhat questionable because you can see that, like, they just can't handle the ice guard, like, in the cold like that and do basically nothing. Let's see if our Smith at least retreats successfully. So, yeah, not the best turn for us in this war, although I was intentionally, we was planning on raiding, like, one more province, but that raid got wiped out by the mine burns, but otherwise, you know, didn't want to put a ton of pressure on Atlantis because, you know, was kind of planning on getting out of the war anyway, looking at the situation, and then Atlantis actually contacted me separately looking to get out of the war as well. And then it looks like a final battle, but probably coming down to it, yeah. So looks like Micklin has got their blood thing set up. Yeah, Atlantis was saying you should definitely fight with Micklin before they get to this point, but I'm pretty sure by the time, you know, we were ready to fight Micklin, this was already in place. Like I said, certainly, you know, Micklin, before they knew that we were going to be fighting Atlantis, they were looking to attack us anyway, so I don't think they were too worried. This fort is empty, and so definitely going to be lost. But yeah, with Vedheim, you know, bowing out here more or less, that is one of the reasons that Utgard is free and clear to do other things. We have some unexpected events. So yeah, we've given up in Raga, trying to, you know, fight the temperature scale battle here. It was cold 1, right? So at best we were going to keep it locked at cold 1. And then it's headed into winter anyway, so the temperature, I think, is naturally going to go down. And it just, you know, felt like, okay, well, kind of thinking about getting out of the war anyway. We're probably not going to be able to, you know, move this temperature scale in the direction that we need it to. So, like, let's just not bother. So we're going to let Atlantis keep Raga cold, at least for the moment. If we don't get out, then maybe come summer, we'll look to try to, you know, switch that up. Or, you know, if we do, Utgard wants to work together, right, for the, you know, a joint war against Atlantis. But I don't really trust it. You know, I mean, Atlantis pointed out, and it was already on my mind, right? It's like, well, yeah, we're the next obvious target with 2 more thrones on the border. And then, of course, you know, Marignan is the other one with a throne on the border, and they're also the ones that, like, first reached out thinking, like, hey, is it really such a great idea that you and Atlantis are fighting? Of course, Marignan Marignon has not offered to attack Utgard, right? So it's kind of like, well, if we get out of the war with Atlantis, then we're left again with the question of like, well, who are we going to be fighting and where are we going to put all these tyrants? I do not have answers to those yet. So there's some famine. We lose some population. This is, kind of par for course in our lands. And then let's see, hey, we get some population somewhere else, right? This is the Rebirth mod at play. There's 20 province income here. That's pretty painful. Then we actually managed to patrol out some scouts. So we find one from Marignon, one from Atlantis, and then one from Utgard as well. I'll catch you guys after the cut. All right, this is the situation and what we're doing about it. Probably most importantly, the peace negotiations with Atlantis have failed, at least for the moment. I offered, status quo borders, like our current situation, which is definitely favorable for us, especially having just grabbed this throne. And considering the strength that Atlantis has left, certainly in a 1v1, that would be a crazy offer. But we know that it's not a 1v1. They're about to be in a 3v1. They're already in a 2v1. They were not interested in this offer. They came back. They wanted 4 provinces back. They wanted this province up here, this guy, and the throne, which is a good chunk of territory to be giving back. We would definitely still be up in terms of provinces. We took a couple border provinces, a few border provinces down here. Obviously, we've taken this throne, so it's not like we would have walked away with nothing. But part of my original offer was to essentially switch sides, so join the war against Utgard. I was going to suggest, or rather I did suggest, that in 3 turns I would end the nap, which hopefully would mean that Atlantis would take more of the brunt of the attack, but also we hopefully wouldn't be jumping in too late to prevent Atlantis from being completely destroyed, and we'd have an ally. We've talked about this situation, right, about why we're even seeking peace with Atlantis in the first place, but thinking on the situation, I definitely do think that we'll probably be next up on the chopping block for Utgard. But, I'm wrong about this stuff all the time. We don't 100% know that to be true. And the more I was thinking about it, the more, this was already on my mind. But definitely also, Marignon brought it up and is, I think, trying to maneuver us. They have other problems. I think, there's a decent chance they fight with Mictlan. We'll see. Possibly Mictlan and Marignon work together to fight against Ulm. Like, really, ideally, we need Marignon. Marignon is the other power that borders Utgard in any kind of meaningful way. So we really would need them to jump in order to have, like, an at all successful war against Utgard. And I get the sense, I just have a feeling, really, that that's not going to happen, particularly if I jump in and keep Atlantis afloat. Right, I think between Atlantis and myself at our current power level, we could probably at best stalemate Utgard. It's hard to say, maybe I'm selling Atlantis short, maybe I'm selling myself short, but I just think, as far as I know, Utgard has not really been fighting all that much recently. Like, they've been fighting against Vedheim, yes, but Vedheim has been fighting a lot of people, and it's been a little while since Utgard has taken serious losses against Vedheim. Not to take away from what Vedheim did, but for the last 10, 15 turns, they've been kind of down to it. Which has not really been the case, right, for Atlantis and myself. We've both been taking, fairly heavy losses. Atlantis, some of their losses coming to Ulm. And so, yeah, I just think in our current situation, it's like, at best, it's going to be a grindy war. So while I'm not thrilled about the idea of, jointly eating Atlantis with Utgard, I also am not really willing to give up 4 provinces to jump over into a grindy war. So for the moment, we're going to stick with the grindy war that we have. But we're going to focus on, we're not really going to push that hard. Like, probably continue to do some raiding, particularly in areas where we don't think Utgard is going to be hitting. I forget exactly when the war triggers. Like, we were discussing timing exactly. I think it's turn 61 or 62 that attack orders will happen between these two. So it's actually still a few turns off. Which I was kind of surprised about. I was thinking that the 3 turns before I end my nap would make sure that we would come in significantly after. But that's not really the case. I don't know whether they have like a longer than normal nap or what the situation is there. Perhaps, I know the cancellation is relatively recent, but yeah, it must be longer than in a 3-turn nap. So, we're going to have to continue to fight Atlantis here, but Atlantis is really going to need to focus. Right? Utgard is coming in regardless of what I do. So I think as long as we don't threaten any of Atlantis's infrastructure, their important infrastructure, they're probably not going to seek out, a major battle. If they do try to seek out a major battle, we're going to try to have it on our turf, on our terms, in heat, because now we have Army of Gold and Flamestorm. And, that combination is going to be a lot more effective in the heat rather than in cold 3. We might also do a little more forging for some of our more important mages, give them some frost rings, because I am pretty concerned about murdering winter. And realistically, to take more infrastructure from Atlantis, we're going to have to sit in a cold location for a few turns. We also could use some more siege strength before we really, go after infrastructure. So all this to say that, we're going to continue warring with Atlantis, but we're not going to press them as hard. And then, once Utgard jumps in, we'll maybe reopen negotiations and try to get, more favorable peace deal. Or, we'll start pushing with the main eye of taking Raga and then, as much other territory as we can, while also trying to hold this throne. Our recruitment has not changed that much, pretty minimal, other than our, Titans, and then also mostly full mage recruitment. I think we might actually have full mage recruitment this turn. As ever, still not really sure about, do we really want all these Titans? But, it's kind of the thing of the nation, so we're going to focus on trying to get as many of them out as possible. We may switch away here and there for a few turns. We might want, we're going to get enough Astral Mages from our thrones. Probably the only thing of note is we are forging some Shade Mails with our Pretender. And I think these will be useful both to, camouflage some of our Titans from time to time, and then also try to bait out some Mind Hunts by slapping it onto an Astral Mage, and having them stealthily follow around a Titan. Because, we could definitely stand to remove some of Atlantis's Mind Hunters, and I expect Mind Hunting really probably from anyone else that we end up fighting. We're going to make a few of those. We'll also possibly use our Pretender just to make some skeletons. We do need some underwater siege chaff, and it's pretty much, I'm sure there's other options, but the undead are one of the easier ways to go. The other option is there's an axe that gives a lot of siege strength, but it takes a ton of earth gems, and we were trying to save our earth gems. We still don't have a very good earth income, unfortunately. And, we are kind of low. So, between the two, even though skeletons aren't fantastic, I think a stack of skeletons, particularly to help us siege down this fort, we'll see about Atlantis's main underwater holdings. We'll probably won't ever deal with those. We'll let other people deal with them. But this here on our border, I think, we can threaten. This is not well defended. Atlantis is pretty much relying on the fact that, we don't have any underwater siege strength. Also, their capital's not far, and they've tended to leave a pretty strong force here. And this can obviously reinforce this fort pretty easily, but, as the war starts to get more dire, I expect this is going to have to move out to defend other things, at which point, this will be pretty free and clear to take. I guess probably the only other thing is, this army that we have here that we're thinking, planning on threatening Atlantis's capital with, we're probably not going to bother. Because this army particularly is pretty susceptible, has a lot of expensive throne mages in it, that we can't really replace this volume. And I think this would be a great target for Murdering Winter. So, we're not really going to sit on any infrastructure with this, and this situation is looking a lot more safe. Ulm seems to have regained control of this area. So, we're going to shift it. We're still thinking that we're going to have to fight Utgard, so we're going to shift it back over towards this throne. We'll see. Obviously, it's entirely possible that Atlantis chooses to run at us, in which case, we'll have to shift things around. I'm not expecting that, but it is possible. But anyway, yeah, so that's where this army is going. It's just going to take this province. It's pretty much just going to try to stay clear of, provinces like this from here on out. Obviously, we have moved it through, some Cold 3 provinces, and it hasn't gotten hit by Murdering Winter, which, frankly, is a bit of a mystery to me. The only thing I can think is that Atlantis, has other uses for their water gems, or like they, really have some other important research targets they're trying to hit. Because we know that they're at Evocation 6. All they need is that Evocation 7, and then they have Murdering Winter. They have a ton of water. I would expect them to have a decent water income. This is, I really don't understand why we haven't been hit by Murdering Winter. But I think at this point, the situation isn't really desperate. Like, we don't really need to risk this army, on top of the capital. If we jump on top of the capital, that probably will force out a Murdering Winter, and it's just going to help Utgard, take it more easily. I think that more or less covers turn 56.